What you listening to, son?
I don't think you like it.
Well, why not? I like this new generation of music.
What's good, y'all? Welcome back to the Everything is Everything podcast, where we discuss the idea that every topic is related if you take the right steps. As always, please make sure to like if you like or don't if you don't. Also, leave comments on what topics we should try to connect in our future podcasts. What's good, y'all? Welcome to the pod. And before we start anything, I want to thank every single person out there for all the support. I really appreciate it. It means a lot to all of us.
It really does.
It means a lot, and honestly, we weren't expecting this kind of support in the first month, and some people may say it's not that much, but we appreciate every single
viewer.
Everyone.
Viewer.
With that being said, my name is Chris. We got my boy Ryan, Christian here, and I do want to let you know, I don't want to take up too much time, but we are going to be upgrading some stuff. We're going to have more people, new setups in the future, so stay tuned.
Please don't be afraid to go into those comments and let us know what you want. We know a lot of the viewers right now have a pretty accessible area for any one of us usually to hit us up, whether it's social media. But yeah, please leave your suggestions down below. We do try to do a bunch of new things, even though we obviously keep it on topic.
We love the feedback. Like, I personally been getting feedback from some people that I know, giving us ideas on what we're going to hear. So we just love that type of stuff, trying to give y'all content that y'all enjoy that can really help your daily life. So we appreciate it.
Absolutely. With that being said, today we're going to talk about whether emotions get stronger or weaker over time. So let me ask both of you that question. I guess either one of you could start if you like.
I think over time, as a person, as you grow and continue to grow with life, your emotions will go up and down. And that's based on situations, things that you go through in life. But I think over time, if you're developing yourself, your emotions should get stronger as a person. Having difficult conversations, like we said. Being in interactions where your emotions are always fluctuating. So over time, your emotions will get weaker at certain points in your life, but they'll also get stronger at certain points in your life. It's just based on a situation, day-to-day basis and situational basis.
Absolutely. If certain things, like you gotta, same thing with emotion. It's just like physical. You gotta practice it. You know what I mean? I think a lot of people, especially as a guy, when we're growing up, you know, it's definitely a toughness situation. At some point in your life, you get hit with you know, are you tough enough, kind of, from either your peers or just something. And absolutely, you have to be in these situations and get used to them. Not in a self-degrading way, but always make sure, you know, if you're confident in something, like being emotionally strong about something, whether it's maybe not getting nervous in a game, try to always keep it, keep practicing it. Don't just think you're going to master it by thinking it.
In terms of emotions, it obviously depends on what's going on, right? How serious are you about what's going on, you know? But I would actually argue that emotions tend to get weaker over time, depending on which emotion you have. Like, for example, God forbid anyone's mother dies, you know? It's heart-wrenching at first.
Absolutely.
It's terrible.
Absolutely.
It's rough. It's difficult. It's all of the above. But over time, I would hope your emotions become weaker in terms of that. You know, it doesn't mean you love your mother any less, but your mother would want you to move on. Anybody that dies would want you to move on and continue to be yourself. Right?
So you're saying, like, weaker for the positive? Or for the benefit of yourself?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And I think it's important that you know when your emotions are getting stronger or weaker. And like we talked about last podcast, emotional regulation, right?
Yep.
So the balance is incredibly important, right? It's a classic Buddhist teaching. You know, balance is absolutely necessary in terms of emotions.
Right.
So, I mean, a lot of people say, well, you know, because the idea is in times of trial, you want to be happier, right? In times that you're being happy, you want to bring yourself down a little bit so you can have a little bit of perspective and maintain
humble yourself.
Humble yourself, exactly. So my question to you guys is, don't you think that it's important to bring yourself down in those highs? Because a lot of people, they don't feel that way. They feel like, oh, but why would I want to bring myself down? I feel good about this situation. I'm happy. I'm ecstatic. And my rebuttal to that would be, if you're so happy in these highs and you're not able to bring yourself down, then I feel like it would be much harder for you to bring yourself up in a rough situation.
And I think that when you are in those happy moments going through those trials, when you're too overexcited, usually there's something that you miss. So
absolutely.
Usually when you're in a moment, there's always going to be something that because you were cheering, you were joyful, you were rejoicing over something, like something good happened in your life. Usually you're so focused on one moment that you kind of miss something else that's happening that could be important in your life. So when you're able to take that one step back and have, clear vision and be able to see everything that's happening, still be able to take hold of that moment that you're in. Remember what it feels like.
Yeah.
But then you have to remember what it feels like to be in the regular present moment, like we talked about. How to know when you're in the present moment that you're in. So you have to be able to say, okay, something good is happening in my life. Now, I can have this good moment happen, but I still have to be able to live my regular daily life and keep going.
Yeah.
Okay, well, let me ask both of you this. This is a question that I was talking about somebody. I was talking about with somebody earlier, probably like a couple weeks ago. How about over evolution? Do you think that emotions become stronger or weaker over time?
Oh,
As a whole? Or
I love that.
as
That's a
whole?
great question. Over evolution, I would say, through evolution, we've gotten a lot more emotionally weaker. I would say in a lot of senses.
I mean, like we care
But
less?
for the good.
For the
no,
good.
no. I was actually going to say we care, I feel like, more.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like that's why they're so prominent now. Because back then it was like, we'll go way back. We'll say before, like even America was founded. We'll say like Europe and all them are still building up.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to become more tribal.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? If you don't know them, they are not your friend. It's very much, you have no idea what their intentions are in a sense. It's not that every single time humans ran into humans, they just started killing each other, but for the most part, throughout history, it's very clear we would. And I think in a certain sense, it definitely has raised us to being more aware of our emotions, where we're quote unquote almost, I don't want to say weaker, but I almost want to say they get the best of you a little easier, because it's easier to go home now and not have anything on your mind, because you're not in like we're lucky. We're not in Ukraine. We're not getting bombed.
Right.
So we can go home and be like, damn, that thing that happened to me in school today, that's really bothering me. That's, back then, best friend might get their fucking head cut off, excuse my language, but you gotta keep going.
Yeah.
You gotta keep going, and
Yeah,
sometimes it's just crazy.
There's a lot more outlets, and I think for your question, I want to say that we've grown more emotionally intelligent. That was the word I was going to put on.
Yeah.
We've grown a lot more
100%. Why
emotionally.
don't you explain that a little bit?
For emotional intelligence, just to think about as far as we've come, especially throughout history. I mean, look at what we built. I mean, we have multi-million-dollar houses that look like they belong in a movie. Like, before, people were living in sheds built out of sticks. Like, just to get that far in the process, now we have automobiles, we got communication, telephones, all of this AI stuff. Like, how far we've come. But people as a whole, I feel like there's two different perspectives. There's the people that are emotionally strong and are able to realize their inner mind and be able to realize their feelings and how they fit, the self-awareness. But the emotionally weak, I feel like they haven't tapped into their inner self, and they don't know how to tap into that inner self.
100%.
Oh, I want to run off that.
So
when you're
there's
done,
there's two different sides to it. Now, where emotional intelligence comes in is whether you're able to realize that or not. Mm-hmm. That's where the emotional intelligence part comes in.
I want to run with that. That to be stated, like, that is the most important part of our whole podcast. I can't stress that enough, because if you don't have the self-awareness, which is why we want to do this podcast, it's not necessarily a bad thing to not have it yet. A lot of people struggle with it because it's
Something you develop.
we're social beings, you know. You're not always focused on yourself, and that's not a bad thing. But we are here to remind you, you know, like to look out for yourself in a not a selfish way, but in a healthy way.
Yes.
Because like you were saying, like we just learning that emotional intelligence is helping us in certain ways, and there's consequences to everything. People think consequence is a bad word. It's not. It's really a domino
for good.
effect word. Like
Absolutely, 100%.
you could play the lottery and the consequence be winning it. That's like that word works in that sentence. It's not only for the negative. So it's important to be extremely self-aware and you know, build upon that in yourself. And
And,
Absolutely.
and more importantly than that, consequences are what make you learn. And a lot of people, this is what we talk about with failure, right? I saw this guy talk, I forget who it was. It was an African businessman from one of the African countries, and he was giving a TED talk to a bunch of people. A very successful man. He goes, and he's like, failure is not fatal. You know what I mean? It's not fatal. It's simply part of the process on the journey to succeed.
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely.
And in terms of emotional regulation over time and emotional intelligence, I think that it's not necessarily that the emotions have gotten weaker. It's that, like you said, people are more aware of their emotions. They're more emotionally intelligent. And they've gotten better at emotional regulation, right?
Yes.
So they understand that they're feeling this way. And they understand that there's consequences, like you said, to expressing certain emotions, right? And this is exactly why we should try to act as little off of emotion as possible, right? Because when you act off of emotion, that's when you really start to lose control, clarity, and you start to do things that you'll regret later.
Yeah.
Right?
yeah,
Absolutely.
So that is one of the biggest things. And honestly, over time, you know, if you just look at the atrocities that have happened over time, right? They're not over. They're still happening. But even in this country, you know, the things that have happened in this country have been so much worse than they are now, right?
yeah.
And that just shows you that either something's happening with emotions, because what caused these atrocities to happen in the first place was really just somebody had this excess of emotion towards like this group, that group, whatever.
It's emotional based.
It's all emotional based. They pass the blame on somebody. They can't take accountability. So they have to blame somebody else for what's going on, right?
Right.
Yeah, I would even say even more so in today's world a little bit, because it's easier to be ignorant to a situation in the 50s because you didn't have the internet. You know what I mean?
100%.
Just,
Absolutely.
if your neighbor said this, you know, and you might just take it to heart.
I think a lot of people now will they'll misskew what somebody says, because a lot of people, you could tell when somebody is affected by something just looking based off of reaction.
100%.
Now, it's different when it gets too emotional, because then you can hear it when they start talking. Sometimes people's
You can
voices,
see it
you
sometimes
can see
too.
it, right? So sometimes people's voices will get shaky. They don't act the same because now you've attacked their emotion. And now a lot of people's reactions are based off their emotions. So now when you affected a person's emotions and they don't have what we were talking about, that emotional intelligence, and they're not as strong, their emotions are not as strong, it's easier to attack somebody when they're mentally weak and emotionally weak.
Absolutely.
So
And
a lot
they
of
care more, right?
Right.
They care more.
So a lot of people, and you can't really blame a lot of things on emotion, because you don't really know unless you actually know what happened to the person.
Yeah.
So a lot of situations, when you look at it, you're like, okay, this person is going through this and this person is going through this. So you have to kind of judge. It's kind of like judgment based. You know
Yeah,
what I mean?
absolutely.
And that takes time and situational like practice. To what I was saying earlier, is you're not gonna gain that eye for it if you don't have a lot of quote unquote like confrontation. If you there's a reason there's the expression if you're everyone's friend, you're your worst enemy. Because if you're making everyone happy, you're not doing something right. Like, I really mean that.
You're doing
because
something wrong. You got a major problem on your hands.
because you're not you. You're clearly flipping yourself to whoever you're around. That's why everyone's always happy around you. And yeah, it's
people pleasing. Yeah, it's not good.
people pleasing. Yeah, it's huge. And even what you were saying about emotion, it's getting even a little crazier now because it does feel like certain morals are not being taught to our youth. And I'm not trying to sound like an old head here, but I really
You're
do.
right.
Like it. I am gonna sound like an old head here because I'm gonna bring up a Biggie
speak
line,
your
but
mind,
he's
speak your
like
mind.
he has a line from his first album, Biggie, where he's like I remember back when our parents took care of us. Look at them now; they even scared of us. And it's like it's getting worse and worse because I do feel like we are at a point where I genuinely meet parents who are like afraid of their kids.
Oh, it happens all the time.
That happens all the time.
That's
at-
not
Absolutely.
something
Dude,
that used to happen,
look
bro.
at Dr. Phil. I mean, I feel like it always happened to some degree, but
Oh, there was always some little
No, it
psycho,
definitely
but
happened,
like the
but-
fact that it's I feel like that whole it takes a village to raise a kid is gone. Like when I used to go outside, like if my neighbors knew me and my parents, and I was doing something dumb,
Oh, they be on you.
they'd be on my like. I can't curse on here, but it'd be crazy. They would go nuts. Like you could get you smacked from somebody who ain't your parent. Now that's not even a thing. And I'm
Now
not
they call
saying
CPS,
like
they
we
call
should just
CPS.
be hitting kids, but like like when we be seeing kids out here, you know what I mean? It's that's why that was a thing. Like it doesn't just take one parent.
And a lot of the times, I think it's sometimes because something's trying to be fulfilled. Like we were talking about people pleasers. Like I'm saying, like I think that morale is trying to be fulfilled because number one, I think it's a social media thing.
Yeah.
I think it's really a social media thing because they're trying to fulfill something that they see.
Yeah.
That even though they think they try to fit into this, I don't even know what to like. What is it, like a scenario? I guess. Like,
Yeah, they just want to fit in.
They're
something
trying
in
to
general.
fit into
some
something.
kind of niche, right?
Right. They're trying
Yeah.
to find that niche. So, and you look at that and you're like, okay, they're trying to fulfill this, whatever they see on Instagram, whatever. All these celebrities are doing it. All these influencers are doing it. And now they've taken it to their heart to try and be that person when that's not meant for them. See, a lot of people will try to do things that are not fitted to them. And that's the first reason why they get messed up as a person. Because they're trying to put their foot into something that's not meant for them.
Well, you know why they do that in the first place, though? Because I do want to connect this back, because it all connects, really. But they do that because they feel some kind of emotion about something that's going on in their life.
They feel some type of way.
Either they are insecure about what they have, what they don't have, right? Or they like this person and they want to be like them, right? But in terms of whether emotions get stronger or weaker over time, I think the emotion over evolution is it aligns perfectly with emotion over a lifetime, right? So that thing that you were so upset about 2 years ago, that girl that broke up with you, that your pet that died, your extended family member that passed away, it doesn't affect you as much anymore, but you still remember it, but it doesn't really affect you as much anymore because that emotional aspect has decreased over time.
Yeah.
Right? Because it seemed like it was everything back then. Because it was, right? It really was everything back then because that was what you were going through.
Yeah, it was your whole.
Now,
moment
is
in
that
life.
because, I want to ask you, so is that because of, you don't feel the same way now about how you did before? Now, is that because your emotional intelligence grew? Or is that you're just growing over time and you're maturing and your feelings and emotions are they can either become stronger or weaker, but do you think that's because of how you grow as a person and you just evolve over time, or you think it's just a natural thing?
I think it's a little bit of both. To be honest with you, I think it's a little bit of both. I think over evolution, emotions do get weaker in some aspects, and emotions get stronger. So the point of evolution, as I'm sure all of us know, everybody watching knows, the point of evolution is to get better, right? It's survival of the fittest. It's always been. You look at Charles Darwin. You look at all these old scientists that have really pioneered evolution. You know, it's all about the strongest
I heard that
people.
since the textbooks. That name
Yeah.
did ring a bell.
You
I
said
was
that
like,
name, I
damn.
was like, wow.
But
Yeah,
no, it all
really.
relates because, or you look at XX's Tentacion. That's somebody you guys know. Obviously, everybody knows. I mean, the
That's
point,
what-
the point,
That's
the
what I was
point,
going with the X.
the point of evolution is to grow.
Yeah.
Very simply, and put in its simplest form, the point of evolution is to grow.
Right.
So, I think really, depending on whether you're gonna grow from having stronger or weaker emotions, I think that's where it goes. Because in terms of emotions like what's it called, like segregation, back in old America, that doesn't exist as heavily today. And I'm not gonna say it doesn't because
What do you mean, like the emotion of like hatred?
yeah, I mean,
Okay.
and it still exists. Don't get me wrong.
Absolutely.
Unfortunately, it still exists. But
I think it forever will.
it forever will probably.
It forever will.
But I genuinely think that over time, it's gonna become less and less and less. Or at least these people are gonna learn that they should keep their mouth shut if they believe a certain way.
And I think only the emotionally intelligent people will be able to accept that. There's some people who just aren't willing to accept things for how they are or
Yeah.
how they should be.
Mm-hmm.
But the emotionally intelligent people are able to analyze something and see the faults within it. That's why emotionally intelligent people are able to look at themselves and realize that there's flaws within themselves. So I think when we're talking about this emotional intelligence and how to build on it, you have to look at yourself first
Always
and look
start there.
and look at your character. Because if you're trying to build your character based upon somebody else, that's how the emotion gets weaker. When we talk about, over time, that's how it gets weaker when you're trying to base something off of something that's not yourself. So emotionally intelligent people are able to look at themselves first and see what's wrong in that area first.
Okay, well, let me ask you this. Let me ask both of you guys this. What constitutes something, or in terms of emotions, what constitutes an emotion that gets stronger over time versus an emotion that gets weaker over time? Like, what do you think the difference is?
I think it's really based on situational things. I think some people will go through deeper situations that allow them to kind of get more clarity and understanding of things in a better way than somebody else can who hasn't been in that situation. So I think some people have a deeper level of understanding and are able to understand things better. And I think that it will always be like that because some people will naturally just be smarter than other people. And we clearly see this happen all the time. But some people are just able to mature and learn things differently than other people. So I think that's kind of what constitutes it.
Yeah, and I also think there's one more major thing that we haven't even touched on yet. And that is that you finally get, how they say hindsight's 20/20. They always say hindsight's 20/20, but you finally get that clarity after you've been through a situation on how much that really affected your life, right? So I'll go back to the example, that girl that broke up with you years ago, months ago, whatever.
Yeah.
Did that really affect you that much? You were sad for a week,
You
2
know
weeks.
what? I always bring it up because you said it to me. You made it more prominent for me. But that saying, I'm gonna say it for the rest of the time on this pod. The smart people learn from their mistakes. Geniuses learn from other people's mistakes. And I genuinely feel like it can even be the same in like something like that. So say you have a best friend, right? And that just happened to you. But now it just happened to your best friend. But now you're looking at your best friend and you're like, yo, my best friend, like, wait a minute, like, we'll say they're older than me. They were living with this person. Now they ain't got a place to stay. Now there's like a whole financial problem. You're like, I just broke up with my girlfriend. It sucked. And it almost like strengthens you if you can really grasp that humbleness and be like, you know what, like that sucked. But thank God I didn't have to deal with that on top of it.
It's all about that perspective, right?
Yeah.
And it does help that strength, but that's where that strength that in itself is almost like doing the reps because you're practicing being like, okay, let me not put myself just first here in this situation. Let me like humble my emotions for a second, make them realize like, you know what, this isn't the end of the world. Like I can keep going. And again, it's not a bad thing to be sad. This is what Chris meant by balance. if you just broke up with that person, go cry for 2 days. That's healthy.
Yeah.
It is.
We've all been
They'll
there.
tell you that it's not. They'll tell you it's not. Go play some Juice WRLD or something. Go cry in your bed. And then after 2 days, when you're like, you know what, this is really boring, and I really need to get out of here and shower and go see my friends and a bunch of things, do it. And it's hard, but it will eventually, seriously, it'll feel so much better. But don't be afraid to let out the emotions, but do them in a healthy way. Don't do it in a, it just happened, so I'm going to say a bunch of things I regret.
Yeah, I think a lot of people like to hold on to that grief for a period of time that's too long.
It's unhealthy.
And it is unhealthy. But some people take longer to grieve than others. And that's perfectly okay. Take the amount of time that's good, that's for you. Everybody works differently in this world. But you have to understand that there comes a certain time where you need to get out of it. You have to get back into that mode of like, all right, it's time to get back to normal. It's time to get back to where I need to be at.
Absolutely. And I think one of the biggest traps that people fall into, I saw somebody talk about this on Instagram, I forget who it was, but one of the biggest traps that people fall into is they convince themselves somehow, and this could be responsible partially somehow due to social media, but they convince themselves that other people don't have these bad chapters like we do. Right, and so
They think
the
victimizing.
They're victimizing themselves.
So no,
It's a
the point
huge problem.
that I'm trying to say though is these people, they think that other people's lives is so much better. Oh man, why does my story have so much bad chapters? How come their story doesn't have all these bad chapters? This, number one, is because you don't know about them.
Facts.
Number two, every story has bad chapters. And thirdly, and this is to sum it all up, every story has bad chapters, but it's about finding the courage and the strength to move on, to turn the page,
Right.
to understand that there's gonna be bad chapters, there's gonna be good chapters, and this is Matthew McConaughey. I saw the speech they were playing in a health class, and he just said, focus on the things you have to look forward to. Everybody's, not everybody, but especially if you do and you can name something to look forward to, you're in a better position than a lot of people out there. There's a lot of people that don't see a way out.
Oh, yeah.
A lot of people, a surprising amount of people, is apparently 57% of Americans can't put their hands on $1,000 if they need it.
I do think part of it is it's like we were just saying, it's that victimizing, because I do feel like when you develop that mindset of like you're the victim, like which I think honestly I'm not even, I think the schools are totally teaching like you're a victim like all the time. It's extremely hard to build a self-improvement mindset because you don't feel like it's your fault. And that's the problem, is a lot of it is whether it's your fault or not, it's your life, you got to fix it. And if you're really feeling like, I guess, like overly bad about something, you want to feel better, go look up what's going on in the Congo right now, like all our phones, just these rechargeable batteries in here, they just like, I remember seeing pictures. Have you guys seen that? So basically in the Congo right now, there's a mineral that they use for the rechargeable batteries and literally everything we use. It could be something like, I kind of forget exactly what material, but it's sad to say, just with this mic, these lights, and this camera, we've probably had connection to, I'm not even exaggerating, probably a solid 70 slaves in our life, because if you look up what's going on in the Congo right now, you'll just see videos of women holding their kid, they're skinny as hell, they're digging with their hands in these caves, they don't even have like tool.
And we have no idea.
We have no
idea. They're not going to tell us
idea.
that.
We're immune to
and
that.
even over there, they don't, you know what I mean? They just were born. They were like, oh, somebody, all right, I guess this guy with the gun and sword and other guys with guns and sword, I guess I got to do this.
And I think as a country, we like to think that we're on a different level than other countries. Like we see sports washing. I don't know. I'm sure you guys have heard about that. How countries, they cover up the bad things that are going on within their country with sports. For example, the Olympics.
Right.
Wherever the Qatar Olympics, apparently with that stadium, some crazy number of people died when they were constructing that.
Oh, I didn't watch I'm a huge soccer fan. I didn't watch the World Cup because
World Cup. That's what did I say?
Yeah,
no, you were good. It's like the same thing. It was literally because
That's
they had a
shocking.
bunch of Indian and Thai immigrants, I believe, and they gave them working permits and stuff. But it's Qatar. It's a extremely new, extremely lawful country, and they would steal their immigrant passports because if you don't have that, you one of the crimes can be death there. So it's like they're stealing them from you now that you're there, so you're trapped, so you can't leave because you'd be afraid you're gonna die, and half of them wouldn't even get their money.
Yeah, and it's just so bad. But I like to mention, like I said, that this stuff is absolutely going on in America. Now, maybe not the exact thing, but there's a lot of
There's
atrocities
still- yes.
that are happening in America, and people like to think that they're not, but they most definitely are. And this is exactly what I mean by people not understanding. And I don't understand a lot of it myself, because like you told me about this stuff that's going on in the Congo. It's just completely new to me. I don't watch the news. I don't know if you guys watch it. I know
You
you
don't
keep
even
up
got
with
it,
the news.
man, because they're not going to tell you it. I'm really
They're
not
not
trying
gonna
to
tell
sit
you.
here sounding like conspiracy, but they not. That's not. You're not going to turn on Good Morning America, and they're not going to talk about that. They're going to
not.
distract you with other things.
They and this is exactly my point. I feel like that is rampant in America. It happens all the time. It's all these news sources are biased to some extent.
Yes.
Oh yeah,
And it's
Absolutely.
impossible to get one that's not. And that's the fact of the matter.
Absolutely.
yeah.
And that's why I never, ever... I hate when people argue about which news source is better. They're all biased. They're all
Oh, yeah.
wrong. They're all providing a lot of misinformation.
Yep.
But this is all we have.
Right.
This is all we have. How else are we going to find out about the rest of the things that are going on in the world?
Well, actually, I'm glad you said that because just do some research yourself. It seems like there's not, but there always is. I'm trying to think of its name. So it's called I forget the abbreviation. I'll put it like this. Unfortunately, it's the web browser thing you use to access the black
Are you
market.
talking about Tor? Yeah,
Because, here, hold on. But, no. Let me tell you why it was made, though. Let me tell you why it was made. Because this is how the black market spawned on it. Because it was made by the governments. So here's what it is. If you're in North Korea, if you're in Saudi Arabia, it doesn't matter where you are in the world. If you go on Tor and you know exactly what you're searching up, you get everything. That's the point of it. Is because it was built for journalists who they're sending the bias to extremely propaganda filled countries. So if we're sending you over with one of our military crews and you're going to document the whole thing, you ever seen those weird people are shooting at each other and there's a guy with a camera, that guy. Well, he needs information. He might be over there for 6 months, but he wants to keep up with what's going on in America. If you access their internet, it's not going to tell you because you're in some war-ridden country where they don't want anybody to know. That's why that became a thing, because you go on there. It's not like Google. You search up what you search up, it comes up. So there is ways around it. You don't have to go on there, but I'm just saying there is a bunch of weird things, but they make it hard. It's not easy. Right. It is a pain in the patoot.
But that's exactly why that kind of web browser is so dangerous, because it's not regulated, and
Exactly.
anything could happen on there, and that's what's so scary about all that black market stuff, all the scary web browsers. That's what's so scary about it, because you could make anything. I remember you were telling me stories of the stuff that you watched some YouTube video or something about the things that they've seen that you've seen on the or somebody's seen on the black market.
Yeah,
whatever.
you can look up. Yeah, no,
Dude,
it doesn't tell you any of the
crazy.
website doesn't give you any of the URLs or anything, but it just tells you about them. And it shows you them. It just blocks out it's nutty. Dude.
Can you
It's
talk a little bit
crazy.
about that? I know we're kind of running up on the time, but I don't really mind if this one's a little longer than usual, because this is an interesting,
It is good.
interesting conversation we got here.
Oh yeah.
So tell me a little
no.
bit about some of the stuff that I know we're getting a
No
little
problem,
off
man.
topic.
It's I won't go into
Yeah, don't go into details.
extreme
exactly.
detail, but the point is it's almost a good example of why total freedom in certain things, it's a good example of why there does need to be rules, Because
Absolutely.
something like that is completely unregulated, so that's why there's something like the black market on it, because people know. They're
And
like,
that's
"Oh,
where that's a
okay."
lot of like the drug trade and stuff like that that's coming through
Oh,
America.
yeah.
You're like, you remember when you were telling me about that? I remember I was chilling at your house. We were talking about just crazy stuff that was happening in the world, and you were telling me, you were like, I mean, think about it. This is how the cartel works, because they they sell their drugs on the black market, and nobody's there to regulate it. And so, especially in other countries where cops and people like that make such a little amount of money that they almost don't get paid enough to do all this research, to do all this
No, they
work.
literally don't.
I wouldn't do all that work if I was getting paid 2 cents an hour. You know what I mean? Like, why would I?
I forget what it was, man. It might have been El Chapo, but when he got arrested in Mexico City, like, he himself has way more money than the Mexican government.
Absolutely.
Do you know what they
100%.
did?
Oh my
Do you know
goodness.
what they did within a 24-hour period
What'd they do?
when he got arrested?
What'd they do?
Like, police helicopters got shot down by the cartel. Like, they took out at least like 2. Killed a bunch of policemen. Raided the
did
place.
hear
about that.
It got to the point where they let him walk out. They didn't break him out. They literally just said, "Yo, stop,
he
stop.
literally-
He's
he-
coming out. He's right here. Take him."
I did hear
And
about
that's it.
that.
He literally controlled, like, the amount of money that he was making it. He literally stored money in, like, I remember watching like a doc. He was literally storing money in the ground, like millions and millions and millions of dollars were literally just stored in the ground. Like, he was making more money than people could ever see
He
in
got
their
to the point
life.
where he was making $1 billion a day.
No, that wasn't even Chapo. I was just about to say that. That was Escobar.
Escobar, yeah.
That's what it was.
One of them.
He has a picture in front of the White House when he was the most wanted man in the world. It's the greatest picture ever.
does.
Have you
Yeah,
ever
yeah.
seen that?
I've never
he
seen
was
that.
in the
I'm
world,
edited in.
and he went and he took his daughter to the White House, and they're in front
Literally
of it,
right
and
in
they
front
take
of the
a
White
picture.
House.
I'm gonna edit that in.
It's the good.
I'm gonna find out how to edit that
It's
in.
a hardcore
this
pick. I
week.
can't even lie.
That is
but-
crazy. But dude, what was that story you told me? There was some professional soccer player that went to play a soccer game for El Chapo in prison. Didn't you say that?
Oh, yeah. So, if anybody's a soccer fan, you've probably heard of the legend himself, Diego Maradona. Even if you haven't, you might have heard of the name Maradona, because he was he won Argentina the World Cup in '86, and he just was a character, man. Like, we're not even gonna be light about it. Like, he totally was known for doing like a lot of coke. Like, he just totally, like, you'd see it in his personality, very hyper, very Ric Flairy.
No one.
But yeah, no, he literally got invited. You can look it up. This is not a secret at all. When Escobar was in prison, he owned that prison. And I'm not even exaggerating. He
owned the
actually paid to have that prison built before he was put in it.
I remember watching that. I
So,
remember watching that in the series.
so he
That is
literally
ridiculous, dude.
pretty
And they
much
literally
threw a
built it.
whole party.
They literally built it for him.
Yeah,
that
They
is
built the prison
ridiculous.
custom to him.
yeah.
Bro, that is
And
insane.
they
then-
like
then
threw
what?
a whole party.
Tell me about the soccer match. And then,
They had a like a fun like soccer match, like everyone was just
Professional
playing
players
it.
and
like
stuff?
he was, I think, the only professional like that got like invited. The rest was just
okay.
like people there. But they played like a friendly match, and even Maradona himself said like the most beautiful women he's ever seen in his life.
yeah, I remember
Like
you
one
telling me about
play,
that.
just a huge party. Like,
I was like, that is crazy. It's probably like the Playboy Mansion just sitting
Literally.
there on a prison yard. That's just
Literally.
ridiculous for me to think about. But
No,
that
dude,
just
it's-
shows you
it's
how
nutty.
much, drugs have an effect over the world, and it's bad. And this is why things like the black market are so dangerous, right? So I want you to think about this, Christian. This is how Ryan explained it to me. All right, say you're a cop. You're making almost nothing, not enough to feed your family. You can't put food on the table, and somebody that sells drugs, somebody that's part of the cartel, comes up to you and is like, "Look, I will give you 10 years of your salary, 20, 30, 40, your entire life. I'll set you up for the rest of your entire life, and all you have to do is not say anything. That's all you have to do. And if you don't agree to that, we'll kill you anyway."
Right, we'll just kill you.
no, yeah, usually you don't
That's
have a choice.
I mean,
So That just shows you what these guys are about. And it shows you how they've taken over so much of these other countries. That's why, and I genuinely believe, more than social media, more than any of these other problems, drugs is the biggest problem that there is anywhere.
Absolutely, and I think with that situation you just told me, that comes based down on emotion, based on life, based on situation. What's happening in that current life. We see so many people, like even the clothes that we wear. Stuff that's coming out of these sweatshops and factories over in Thailand, China, Asia. They just found a bunch of kids, paying them 50 cents an hour or however much that they pay them, and work them for hours. The whole day.
Yeah.
They might get a 30-minute rest. Not even a 30-minute rest.
Not even.
And they just work them.
It's terrible.
Have you ever heard of the what's outside the Apple factory in Thailand's windows?
No, what is it?
What is it?
Oh man,
nets?
I'm so glad. It's nets. It's
did hear
suicide
about that.
prevention nets outside every single window in the factory. If it's on the second floor or above, it's a suicide net that hangs
And
outside the
nobody
windows
knows about
because
it?
people were jumping.
And this is tied to the biggest company in
Apple. This is
America.
Apple. This is
Apple.
Apple.
This is Apple we're talking about.
And
All
they-
three of
but-
us have Apple iPhones right in our pocket.
And I bet,
it's
if
funny,
you
I don't like
ask
Apple
somebody
over in
that,
Asia.
if you
I
ask
don't like it.
over half the population in America,
have no
nobody
idea.
would know. Nobody would know what
They
they.
probably deny it.
They probably deny it.
That's
They're like,
bad.
this is Apple. Are you crazy? They make the best phones in the
They're
world.
worth
And,
$1 trillion. How would they do something like that? That's how they got to be
They
worth $1
don't. They
trillion.
don't use Apple like
And
that
it's not-
over in the Asian countries. They
No,
don't.
they
It's
use-
all like
they use the
Samsung
other-
and
yeah.
all. Yeah.
and it's probably the same with Nike, Adidas, all these big companies that we know. There's so much stuff that we don't even realize is happening, and it's happening every single day.
Have you guys heard about
When we
Ohio?
wake up, when we go to sleep, like
Have you guys heard about Ohio with the train?
No, what happened?
Oh, see, like, this is what I mean.
Wow.
This is literally
I might
like
have.
some of the worst thing. That, so basically, in 4 different spots of the country, and at this point, I'm sorry, call me a conspiracy theorist. There's no way it's an accident. 4 of these trains with huge chemical compounds in them have derailed and completely exploded. In
I did hear about that.
and it just
I
happens
saw the
to
pictures,
be
too. It's bad.
in our like most crop growing states. So like that's why again, like, call me a conspiracy theorist, but it's getting to a really weird point. Like they all just happen to go out in a state that's like, oh, now where the soil and the waters have weird chemicals in them, and it's where all our crops come from. I don't know if anyone knows this. You can look it up again. It'll come right up even on biased stats like Google and whatever. Bill Gates owns the most amount of farmland in the world, or in the United States. You
And
know what this
China
man
owns
is
some
quoted
too.
saying?
What?
That plastic meat will eventually be good.
Oh, dude, America's they like
disgusting.
paint unhealthy foods as healthy. They really do.
they did.
You ever seen a cereal aisle in Mexico? Like for like with the American cereals in it? It literally looks like you're walking down a biohazard aisle because all the boxes have huge like triangles of like over sodium, over sugar.
Oh,
Like
yeah.
they cover all the characters so the kids don't like get enticed by the characters.
Wow.
They
I didn't
save
know
their
that.
worst food for the Americans. I'm serious.
I think that's why 63% or whatever it is. It's some crazy. It's not 63. It's like 40% of Americans are overweight.
Yeah, if
Clinically
you ever hear
obese.
about
That's why
athletes going
that's why
overseas,
obesity is literally the highest in any literally obesity in America literally will probably double any population in any other country.
And you know what it all
Yeah.
comes down to? It all comes down to whether or not emotions really get stronger or weaker over time, and here's why. Because
Tie it up.
with in terms of capitalism and countries like the United States, people have to make a decision. All right? They have to make a decision. Is it worth my money? I mean, is it worth other people's health, other people's situations, so I can make my money? Right? So
Yeah.
then it comes down to it. Then I ask you one more time. Do emotions really get weaker over time?
man, again, I feel like it's such a 50,
Do they really get weaker over time?
It's really a 50-50 because you could look at it in so many different ways, and you could just be like, well, I mean, if you are a person that's growing and maturing, you could say that your emotions are getting stronger. as you go through your day-to-day life. But then you can look at it and can have all these situations that are happening to and affecting you in a negative way. So now you can say that they're getting weaker. It's based on your perspective. It's based on mindset. It's based on relationships. It's based on all of these other things. But you have to look at what really matters first, and that's yourself. So I would say that's my answer to the question.
Listen, I
it.
appreciate you guys for watching. Let us know what you guys think about the conversation, any topics that you want us to
Leave a
talk
comment.
about in the future. We appreciate y'all for listening. Like, one more time, appreciate every single person that supports us. It's monumental. It changes our day, and it really means a lot to us, all right? So if you guys like the content, make sure you like, subscribe, comment, and share it with your friends, and we'll catch you guys on the next one.
See ya.